Welcome to this lesson on how to handle difficult people and interruptions in meetings. In the 1960s, Eric Berne's games people play became the basis for transactional analysis. This concept of gamesmanship can be applied to meetings and the roles people play in them. Berne identified some specific roles which are relevant to managing meetings: the Dominator, Silent Sam, the Blocker, and the Socializer. The Dominator tries to control the conversation and dictate what people should be doing. The Dominator often exaggerates his or her knowledge and will monopolize any conversation, claiming to know more about the situation and have better solutions than anybody else. The person who grabs the floor and never lets go, and wants to run the meeting, is a real threat to the outcomes. Here are some guidelines on handling the Dominator. Do try to keep others involved. Ask questions, and direct his observations to the whole group. Do avoid wrapping up issues before everyone who needs to has had to say. Don't engage in a one-on-one battle with them. And don't immediately assume an adversarial stance. You will end up looking worse. For example, when you have a Dominator in your meeting, you may want to say something like this: "Paula, excuse me, but I need to interrupt you. I think everyone understands your point that the copy machine doesn't work. Now let's hear from someone else. Sarah, what would you like to say?" The Silent Sam often sits throughout meeting making no comments at all. The Silent Sam may be doing so because he or she is not interested in the topic, is shy or lacks self-confidence, is being deliberately obstructive, or perhaps has no opportunity to contribute, either because of a meeting Dominator, or because the chair has not offered any opportunity for Silent Sam to contribute. The Silent Sam can be even more difficult, because they take up precious time when you're trying to get an opinion from them. Here are some tips on how to handle the Silent Sam. Do use open-ended questions, such as, "What is your opinion, Michelle?" Do slow the pace of your speech, to ensure that everyone has the maximum opportunity to participate. Don't ever embarrass the Silent Sam by asking them to explain why they do not participate. And finally, do let them know much you value their input when they contribute to the meeting. The Blocker opposes every idea or opinion that is put forward, and yet refuses to make their own suggestions. For example, "That's not a good idea." The result is that the group stalls because it can't get past the resistance. Here are some tips on how to handle the Blocker. First, have a pre-meeting discussion with them to ascertain their possible objections. Then during the meeting, draw out objections with structured questions. Turn the objections over to the group to judge. Point out the negative impact of their continuing objections. And finally, throw the ball into the Blocker's court by asking for their recommendations. Another common dysfunctional role in meetings is that of the Socializer. The Socializer, or distractor, uses group meetings as fun time and a way to get out of real work. The Socializer often distracts other people by telling jokes, playing pranks, or even reading unrelated material. Here are some tips on how to deal with the Socializer. Firstly, don't get caught up in his or her latest story. Don't belittle or badger the Socializer. Keep them on side, but do be sensitive for his or her needs for socialization. They may not get any at home. But, and most importantly, do firmly bring conversations back on track. For example, you might say, "Cool, excuse me, but this meeting is to discuss how to keep track of the new product line. I'd like you to hold on to that question about electing new fire warden until we have our safety meeting next week. Thanks." Quotes. And here is an example of how you may want to handle the Socializer. "Sally, excuse me, but this meeting is to discuss how to keep track of the new product line. I'd like you to hold on to that question about electing new fire wardens until we have our safety meeting next week. Thanks." Let's look now at how we can handle the common problems in many meetings: interruptions. To handle interruptions, place signs in the room instructing participants to silence their cell phone and switch off their Blackberries. Make an announcement at the beginning of the meeting about interruptions. Since the participants will most likely be looking at the agenda, place a reminder there too. And what about people running in and out? Set expectations in advance that you do not expect people to go in and out of the meeting. But, incorporate frequent bathroom or refreshment breaks. And endless timely feedback is given to those who break the rules. How do we deal with meetings which are going off the tracks? Using the EAR technique helps to do this in 3 simple steps. E equals engage. Engage the conversation by becoming contributor for a moment. A equals acknowledge. Acknowledge that the topic is valid and worthy of discussion. And R equals redirect. Redirect the participants back to the conversation. Here are some final tips about game players in meetings. People play games in meetings, and you need to know how to handle them. Always remain calm. Use the agenda to keep people on track. Know your participants, and plan your techniques for controlling them. Be consistent. Follow through on your promises and warnings. And finally, set an example. Lead with integrity and respect for all. There are a number of activities to complete for this unit. Take the time to complete these in your manual. In this way, you will better learn from and retain the knowledge covered in this unit. Thank you for watching this lesson. We hope you have found it useful. Would you like to learn more? Visit our websites to view our range of courses on the principles of management.